Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bryn. I am transgender and non-binary, and I make videos about those topics. So today, the video that I have in mind is something that I've had a few different people reach out to me about. Obviously, it says it in the title, but this is a video about how to appear more androgynous, if that's something that you are looking for. Before I start, I do want to make a few disclaimers. First off, I am in no way saying that if you are non-binary that you should appear androgynous if that is not something that feels comfortable to you. This is just meant for people who are looking to become more androgynous. Second disclaimer, I do want to put out there, this video is probably going to be mentioning some specific traits that are typically perceived as male or female or masculine or feminine, and so if that's not something that you can really hear right now, like if you're in a very dysphoric mood or you're just extra sensitive today or like whatever, it might be a good idea to click off of the video and come back at a time where you're feeling better, or maybe just not watch it if that's something that you think could make you feel not the greatest. My intention, of course, is never to make somebody feel negatively about themselves, but in order to explain different techniques and tricks and whatever to appear more androgynous, I am going to have to point out things that may make people uncomfortable. But again, with me pointing those things out, that does not mean that there is anything wrong with you if you have those traits, even if you don't feel connected to them. I'm in no way saying you are flawed or that you need to fix yourself, because there is nothing wrong with you. This is just for people who want to appear more androgynous. And then the last disclaimer, I don't really have a specific order for any of these. They're all just kind of like, I don't know, I picked out an order, but it's not really anything specific. So, all right, so let's hop right into it. All right, so the first thing that I have, which this is pretty generic, so sorry if it's a bore, but I promise they're not all gonna be this generic. The first thing I have is to experiment. And obviously that's a very generalized idea, but I think with any sort of change, with any sort of process of figuring out who you are, experimentation is a very big part of that process. And I know for myself and for a lot of other trans people, it can be really frustrating to not know completely what you want, or like maybe know the right direction of where you want to go, but not a specific idea or a specific goal. And that can be really frustrating to not be able to envision yourself as how you want. So experimentation is probably your best way of learning what you want and also feeling confident with what you want, and what you want to wear, how you want to act, all that kind of stuff. Number two, I'm just gonna put a little disclaimer, but this one can have some permanent, long-lasting effects. So this is not something to take lightly. Most people don't take it lightly. I haven't met anyone who does, but I just want to put that out there. Yeah, so number two is HRT, and as I said, don't take it lightly, but most people don't. Honestly, this is one of the biggest things for me that helped me to achieve a look where I feel the most androgynous. That isn't to say that you need to be on HRT or that HRT will necessarily make you feel androgynous. You know, it can, I'm sure, make people feel different things, but for me, this was a very, very big one, and for a lot of trans people, HRT is obviously a big stepping stone. HRT is something that can be a very difficult decision to make. HRT will change your face structure, not your bones, but the fat in your face. It'll change the way your body is shaped. It'll change the way your hairline is. It'll change so many things. And then those are things that you will not have to worry about covering up or whatever. For example, HRT can really help people's hairlines. So if you have a receding hairline and you end up starting HRT, sometimes it can help to grow in some of that, and then you don't have to worry about always covering up your receding hairline. So HRT is definitely a big one. but it's also, I don't want to just put it out there willy-nilly, but you get the gist. So number 3 is your voice. So this is a very big one, and this is something that I'm still kind of learning. I kind of go back and forth sometimes. Voice can be very difficult, especially, I feel like especially trying to find an androgynous voice, just because, you know, there's not, I've definitely heard androgynous voices before, don't get me wrong, but it's not really that easy to just find an androgynous voice and then try to mimic it, which, I mean, I'm sure you can, hopefully find somebody like that, but I'm just saying it's not necessarily the most easiest. But what I do want to say, I forget who it was, but somebody, like, it's probably on another YouTube video, mentioned this app called Voice Pitch Analyzer, which is like, basically you get it on your phone. I have an iPhone. I don't know if you can get it on other devices, but I'll check. I will have it linked down in the description box in case any of you are interested. But basically, it has a little like 1-minute story that it scrolls through, and you read it out loud, and your phone listens to your voice, and then it tells you where your pitch lines up on the female, androgynous, male range. Or it might be flipped over, I don't quite remember. But regardless, it tells you where the pitch of your voice lies, which is really nice. And then that way you can kind of practice to get it either up higher, or if it's too high, maybe get it down lower, you know, whatever feels like a comfortable range for you. And that was something that made me feel a lot better, because the first time I tried it, it said that my voice was like almost right at the androgynous point, and I was like, oh wow, like I always felt like my voice was really deep, so that was very nice. But a really big thing to pay attention to with your voice as well is the tone, is the way that you talk, even the way that you move when you talk. I think people get really hyper fixated on the pitch of your voice, which is a big deal, but I mean, I've heard women with very deep voices that I don't automatically assume are male just because they have a deep voice, you know, because the way that they talk is more in like a feminine expression, or vice versa. Like, you know, I have people whose voices might be higher, but they talk in a very masculine-esque kind of way, and I don't even think about the fact that their voice is high. So with the voice thing, a lot of it is the tone, and it's kind of hard to explain like what tone you should use to feel androgynous, or to appear more androgynous to others. I don't have an exact like reference for that. A more masculine way to talk is probably to be more like sturdy and abrupt, I feel like. I feel like when men talk, it's very like solid. I'm hoping I'm using words that kind of make sense, but I don't know, I feel like feminine voices kind of flow. They're a little bit more airy, they kind of just flow together, whereas men's words and stuff that they say can be very abrupt and just like almost come across as like aggressive, but not aggressive. I'm having a very hard time knowing how to explain this, but regardless, what I would say is to try your best to find a voice that you find androgynous, and try to mimic not only their pitch, but their tone and the way that they talk. So the next thing, I'm excited to talk about this because I am a hairstylist, but the next thing is hair. So obviously there's so much that can go into hair, and it's definitely a little bit hard to give specifics because everything depends on your face shape and all this different stuff. But your hair, I mean, can play a very big part. My recommendation would be, if you can, to find a trans or non-binary or even just an LGBT hairdresser. And I mean, I know that's more difficult than I'm making it out to be. It can be very difficult. I don't know any other non-binary hairdressers, I don't think, and I might know like one other trans one or something, but like But I would say try to find somebody you could trust, or at least somebody who, you know, understands gender, even if they're not trans or non-binary, or maybe they're literally a cisgender heterosexual, but, you know, their partner is trans, or I don't know, whatever. But find somebody who understands, like, what you're feeling and what you're going through, because it can obviously be very difficult to go to a complete stranger and talk about your gender and hope that they don't mess up your hair. Like, that can be really stressful and difficult. So I'd recommend trying to find somebody that you like. If you can't really do that, then I would recommend waiting until you find somebody that you can trust. Or, you know what, if you feel comfortable walking into a salon and doing whatever, then that's fine too. But I know a lot of times it can be very nerve-wracking to get your hair done, especially when you're trans. But I will say, so the cut, I know there's obviously generalized statements like that longer hair tends to appear more feminine, whereas shorter hair tends to appear more masculine. But, you know, there's women with short hair, there's men with long hair. It's not an end-all be-all just because of your hair length. But I will say, things like bangs or side bangs do tend to appear more feminine. And you can also, if you have, say, a forehead that you feel like is too big, or a receding hairline, or, you know, like I don't like my brow bone, I don't like getting bangs, so I don't have bangs, but bangs could be something I could use to cover up my brow bone. Hair is something that you can use to kind of accentuate the parts of you that you really like, and to kind of hide the parts of you that you're not so comfortable with. Also, there's the part of the hair, whether it's a middle part or side, or like here, I'm gonna show, oh, I don't even have my things on. Okay, so like I've been parting more like this, which helps me feel more androgynous, but I used to, a few years ago, always part to the side like this, which isn't bad, but that's just, I feel more comfortable now going like this. I feel like it makes me more androgynous. I feel like the further the side part, the more feminine it looks, or at least that's how I feel about my hair. I don't know about others. But there's one more thing that I want to say about hairstyle, because this is something that you could try on your own, but I'm just gonna say, like, do it at your own risk. But my hairline, naturally is like this. And so it's not the worst, but I feel like it goes back. This is how it was before I started transitioning, but there's a little bit of hair. But something that I did was I took a little tiny, like, slice of hair, like, literally, like, maybe that thin, but a little bit longer, and I trimmed it short so that when I pull my hair back, it lays down, and same on this side, so it lays down. Because if it's long, it gets pulled back with the rest of the hair, but when it's short, it doesn't want to move. So it automatically lays down because that's what my hairline likes to do, or that's what my hair naturally likes to do. And it's given me a much rounder hairline than I naturally have, but you can't really tell. So that's definitely an idea. Again, do it at your own risk. Take a tiny, tiny bit of hair at a time until you feel like you have enough, because chopping a giant chunk out of your hair isn't really a great idea. But you just take, like see all this? Like, I could take that and snip it, like, here, and then it would just lay down. So that is always an idea. Another thing that I would say about hair, I feel like blonde hair tends to appear more feminine, specifically if you get it colored. Just because, for whatever reason, men are taught not to take care of themselves, women are taught to be artsy and creative and fun and blah, blah, blah. So coloring your hair is definitely a big deal, or at least can help. You know, if you're going for something a little more feminine, maybe put in, like, make your hair a little bit reddish or a little bit blonde or something like that. Like, overall, I feel androgynous, but, like, you can see I have this little blonde part that I put in, like, a week or two ago. And, like, I mean, it kind of makes me feel a little feminine, but it doesn't bother me. I enjoy it, and I would say if you get your hair colored, especially if it's a color that is not natural, that can sometimes make you appear more feminine or less masculine, because, you know, what man is gonna dye his hair like burgundy, you know what I mean? And not that there's anything wrong if men do that, nothing wrong with men doing that, but I'm just saying that, like, the way that society looks at hair, that would be something that would help let them know that you are not a man. And on top of that, there's the super fun, super bright colors, which I think those, I mean, to me, those are very androgynous, because like, anyone who has hair like that is just fucking awesome. And it's also something that I'm going to talk about this a little bit later with one of my later topics, but it is something that kind of obviously vibrant or whatever, it kind of takes the focus off of things that may make you feel dysphoric, because when people look at you, they're gonna be like, oh, look at that person with the super cool green hair. You know, they're not necessarily gonna be focusing on, you know, other things that you might feel dysphoric about. So that's kind of like a good way to deflect from dysphoria. I know a lot of people that it's kind of like an ongoing joke, at least in the trans community around me. I'm sure probably everywhere else too, but that, like, since you can't change your body, like, in terms of your gender or whatever, like, if you're feeling stuck and whatever, you know, you just change your body in another way. You change your hair, change your piercings, change whatever. So the next topic kind of goes along with the haircut and style and color and all that, but it would be things like your clothing choice, your accessory choice, your jewelry, your tattoos, and your piercings, like anything really that goes on the outside of your body. Obviously those are going to be big things that you can choose, and I can't really give like an exact idea of what you should wear, because there's so many different styles. And, like, for example, I feel very comfortable in men's clothing, but you might not, and you can still look androgynous even if you don't wear men's clothing. So I don't have like a whole bunch of specific advice, but I will say when it comes to clothes, I would recommend, especially when you're just starting out and you're in your experimentation phase, or even if you're not just started out, but you just woke up one day and you were like, you know what, I think I always want to wear flannels now forever. And so instead of going to Target, spending $25 on one flannel, I would recommend going to a thrift shop and getting whatever clothes you want. Obviously, thrift shops are much, much cheaper, and when I first came out, before I even started hormones, I would go to, like, regular stores and spend, like, a decent amount of money on clothes, and then decide a month later that I don't even like them, so why am I buying them? And I would waste all this money. Whereas now, if I go to, like, Goodwill or something, and I spend, you know, $5 on 2 t-shirts, and then I come home and I'm like, actually, I don't think I really like them. I only wasted $5 instead of, like, you know, $30 on 2 t-shirts or whatever. So thrift stores are your BFF. They're my BFF anyways. So I would definitely recommend that. As I was saying, similarly to the hair standing out, the same idea with your clothing or your piercings or your tattoos or, like, whatever. Things that stand out are going to distract people from things that you might not want people to see, or things that people that you may feel dysphoric about when people notice. So I'm not telling you you have to be extravagant and put yourself out there and be like a peacock and all bright and colorful. But I am saying that that is one solution to deflecting dysphoria. My rings, for example, like, here's a perfect example of deflecting. I have clubbed finger, which, if you don't know what that means, it's basically the tips of my fingers, or the ends of my fingers, aren't any smaller than the rest of my fingers. So, like, I don't know if you can really tell. I get very insecure about it, but most other people say they can't tell. But if you look, like, they're very, I feel like most fingers go in at the end. My clubbing or whatever isn't too bad. I have clubbed fingers because I have cystic fibrosis, which is a whole nother thing. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is with my fingers being bigger, I have always felt dysphoric over my hands. I felt like they're too big. I felt like they appear masculine because they're like stubby or whatever, I don't know. But within the last, like, I want to say it was last fall or something, I started painting my nails and I started ordering more rings. And I mean, I still am not like a huge fan of my hands, but I think they're much more manageable now and I feel good about them. And because when people see my hands, they see all these beautiful rings. They don't see the clubbing. And they see the wonderful nail polish, except that it's chipping. But that's a perfect example of deflecting. And so the very last thing, this is something pretty general. You might roll your eyes out, which is why I left it for last, because I feel like a lot of people, like, not everyone watches things the whole way through, so I wanted to put the, like, heavier things in the beginning, I guess. But this would be things like your name and your pronouns. So obviously, you know, if you have a name that is stereotypically masculine or feminine, choosing a name that is more gender neutral may help you feel more androgynous or whatever. Not that you have to, but again, it can help with that. And pronouns, the same thing. That can obviously deflect a lot of dysphoria because, you know, if people are calling you the right pronouns, you don't feel like you're being categorized in a label that doesn't suit you. So, I mean, I know sometimes picking a name can be hard. I don't have any super good tips about how to pick a name other than Google it or get like a baby name dictionary, whatever. I don't even remember where I heard mine, but I loved the name Bryn ever since I was like 10. I used to like daydream about having a daughter named Bryn and like all this stuff. And then I was like, oh wait, actually that's just me. So like I was trying to manifest a kid to live vicariously through, but then I just decided that could just be me. Yeah, so, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory with the name and pronouns, so. Really quick, I swear every time I make a video, I forgot to put something in it, but, but the one thing that I missed, and I don't know how I missed it, because I literally had my list right in front of me, but, would be makeup. I don't have a lot of specific tips on that. I don't really wear makeup. Sometimes I'll wear eyeliner, but other than that, I'm not really a big fan of makeup. But I know that there are, I don't know if there's a lot of androgynous videos, at least not for people who were assigned male at birth, but there are videos for trans women or even just like cis women in general that like wear makeup and it helps accentuate their femininity. So, you know, you might be able to kind of, you know, watch one of those and like taper it to maybe not looking so feminine, but helping it kind of demasculinize your face or demasculinize your face. If you want, I wish I had more tips on that, but I really don't. I would just say try to look up videos on YouTube and experiment a lot. But yeah, and just, so we're basically done, but I do want to say, just be patient with yourself. It can be so frustrating, and I'm sure you know. Like, I don't need to tell you how frustrating it can be, but I'm just telling you, I understand how frustrating it can be, and there will be a day where you look back and you're like, wow, I've come so far. Wow, I know myself so much better than I did a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. You know, I always thought I was just gonna be lost forever. Like, seriously, I just thought I was. And I don't feel that way anymore. I encourage you to be persistent, and don't stress yourself out. Like, if you're, like, no one says that you have to figure these things out right now. You know, if you're not ready to, or it's too overwhelming, like, you can wait. You can pick one little thing to try. Like, I want to try flannels. I'm only saying that because I'm wearing a flannel. But, like, I want to try flannels, and then you go and you get a few flannels from Goodwill or whatever, any thrift store, you know. And maybe that's all you do this month, is try on some flannels and decide how you feel. And that's fine. Like, you don't have to, don't put pressure on yourself to figure things out. I know how frustrating it can be. I know how much it's like, like, I already feel like I've missed out on a big portion of my life because I wasn't out then, and now I'm out, or now I'm figuring things out and I'm still not there and I just want to be there. Like, I get it. I really, really do. And I'm not invalidating how you feel at all, because I get it. But I'm just saying, just stay strong and you'll figure it out. So, if you made it this far, thank you so much for staying on the video. I know this was a longer one than what we're used to, but I figured there was just a lot to talk about here, so, all right.